Hello and good afternoon, and apologise for starting a little bit late today. This is the Trust Fundraising Q&A live on the Trust Fundraising Hub on Facebook. My name is Beth Upton. I am the CEO of Money Tree Fundraising, and I am also the administrator and the person who runs the Trust Fundraising Hub. Now, today we are meant to be joined by Neela Jane Stansfield, who is authoring a book all about trust fundraising, and she is going to include in her book, hello Neela Jane, she is going to include in her book a Q&A section at the back, and so part of today is for her to, here we go, I might have invited her to join us now. Part of her book is, or a section of her book is going to be about Q&A, so finding out what trust fundraisers wants to know the answers to. Now, I have to confess, technology has beaten me. I find Facebook really confusing, so I haven't managed to get her to join us yet, but Neela, I think, has been invited now to join our group, and hopefully she will join us live. While we are waiting for her to work through the tech, let me see, bring someone on camera. I'm very sorry, this is very unprofessional to do this like this. I just can't do it. It's not an option it's giving me, so never mind. Right, while hopefully Neela is able to work out how to join us on camera and I'm able to work it out, I wanted to highlight a couple of things. You may have seen on the group that Lark Owl, led by Caroline Danks, is doing their annual benchmarking survey. I know a lot of us are keen to know what success rates look like in trust fundraising, what does ROI look like, and that kind of thing. And I would very much encourage anyone who feels they can to take part in her benchmarking exercise, because frankly, unless we all take part, how are we going to know how we measure up to other organisations? That is live at the moment, and it's already on the group, and I'll get Caroline to do another post to promote it as well. Obviously, she will publish the results at the end of it, and anyone who's taken part will get a first glance, so it's also really handy from that point of view. I've been sent one specific question for today, which I wanted to launch with, which is, I'm really sorry, I've written my notes wrong and I've not written down the name of the person who asked the question. Apologies. They work for a multi-academy trust, want to raise funds for projects, not core. How do they position applications when the organisation's income is approximately £15 million, and who would fund these projects? So, I mean, it is possible to raise money for, I would describe it as value add, within multi-academy trusts. So multi-academy trusts are sort of like charities. They're either exempt or they can have a charity number. You can't seem to get on the video, Neela. I know, it's really frustrating. I could add Emma if I wanted to, but that is the only person. I've turned on the thing that says allow viewers to send me a request to join my broadcast. So if you can find something that says you can request it, but it might be, I don't know, that you're using a different operating system to me. I'm very sorry. Yes, so can someone raise grant funding for a multi-academy trust? The short answer is yes, it is limited. So it is limited in terms of you have to do the funding for value add, so nothing that's core to the curriculum, nothing that's core to what would be expected that a school would provide. So you can raise money outside of that stuff for value add, and there are trusts that will fund you. My experience is a bit dated now, but we used to get more success from local trusts. So if you go locally, there'll be sympathy to supporting young people in the area, and I don't know, providing them with iPads or whatever it is it needs. And obviously there's been a huge wave of that going on because of children being at school, not having access to technology, and that technology preventing them from being able to access education during lockdowns. So there is that going on. Absolutely, the income of the organisation is huge, and there will be some that won't be able to see past that, but you know, make it clear that that's statutory income and statutory expenditure, and if you can, present your accounts so that your charitable income and charitable expenditure sit sort of separately or alongside in some way. who would fund these projects? Local trusts. I mean, you've just, I'm going to move on to a question around how to find trusts as well. And then the second part of the question is a community appeal beneficial, and any ideas how to deliver one? Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends where you live and what the wealth demographic is of your parents, really. But most schools will do an appeal for that sort of thing. We've just had one for our son's secondary school, the PTA raffle, so that they can put Apple TV in the maths block. I mean, I personally don't think Apple TV has any place in a maths block, but I don't understand the value of it, so that's neither here nor there. Absolutely, you can do a community appeal and, you know, use the school to access the parents and start from there, because it's the parents of children and who will care more about that kind of thing. And I hope that helps. Heather, you've asked, how in depth should an expression of interest be? Can I ask you to give me a bit more context? So are you giving an expression of interest to a grant maker, or what's the context of that to help me give you a good answer? And while I'm waiting for you, I'm just going to have one last go. No, I still can't add you to the video, Neela. It's very frustrating. No. While Heather is... yeah, thanks, Neela. I'm very sorry. While Heather is helping me understand what the expression of interest is, I've got a few more questions. You have 5 questions to answer. So it's an expression of interest by your charity to a charitable trust. I should say, while we've got all 30 people here, obviously everyone who attends live, 32 of you, hello. Everyone who attends here live today was given the chance to win a copy of Neela's book. And so what I would like is, could you all like in some way this post, however it is you do that, just by pressing like or making a comment, so that we've got all 32 of your names, so that all 33 of your names now, and I'll say this again as the broadcast goes on so no one misses out, so that we've got your name in some way, and therefore we will be able to put all your names in a hat and draw out the winner. So scope of project, expression of interest. I mean, it's really difficult, Heather. I just don't know without knowing who the trust is, and I might not even know who the trust is. I just think, you know, expression of interest, 5 questions to answer. I mean, answer their questions half a side per question, unless that's impossible. That's kind of would be my guess of a decent length. But I mean, it is a complete guess based on scope of project, 5 questions. I mean, if you can do it in half a page per answer, do it. I mean, succinction is not even necessarily a word. Being succinct is a very good thing in trust fundraising. But if it takes longer and you're definitely sure you're not using extra words, then take as long as you need, really. I seem to be scrolling on the same questions over and over and over again. This is odd. Right, I'm going to try and make questions full page, but I don't know. Hello, everybody. Is there a standard or recommended structure for expressions of interest? Not that I'm aware of. I think expressions of interest isn't a very commonly used thing in trust. So I'm interested if more and more of them are doing that, then that's that would be an interesting development. Nah has asked me, how do you think charities can best respond to the changing market post-pandemic, particularly the increased competition for trust income? Thank you for highlighting that, because I think that is a really important thing we're all going to face in the coming few years. You know, as their accounts come out, we will see how much the trusts have stepped up to fill gaps during this pandemic, and what that means in terms of their reserves and their ability to spend in the future, and whether that will impact on their grant making in the short term. what we saw after the financial crash in 2008 was that their investment income was pitiful, and they maintained grant levels but didn't increase them. And so basically there was a real terms decrease because there was no sort of rise in line with inflation for several years, where they rebuilt their reserves up again. So I think it will be really interesting. I think, you know, lots of people have cottoned on to trusts, and that's an increasing trend that I see as the years go by. So, I mean, there is no easy answer for how you can respond to the changing market and increased competition, apart from to say diversify your income. But I will say that there are charities that diversified their income into events and mass participation, who then really, really struggled because the pandemic closed it all down. So I would say, I used to say very flippantly, just, you know, diversify your income. I mean, what I genuinely think is, with the exception of some charities, everyone should have an individual giving program, and you can start that by just going to whoever already supports you and asking them to give whatever it is they give on a regular, dependable basis. It doesn't have to be a big ask, but as soon as organisations can start building regular, dependable monthly income, they've got unrestricted, they've got something to rely on, and they know it's coming in. And that's, you know, that's my view of what we should all be doing, unless that is an impossible way of raising money. I don't know what is wrong with my phone, but it just keeps scrolling to the same questions over and over again. So there you go. So Neela is saying in the comments, which I've now lost, she's got a little Google form which she's going to share at the end of this session in the main group. So if you'd like to be entered into that prize draw for a free copy of the book, if you could put your email address on that form, and then she will share it. So Helen is asking, if someone was to do one single trust fundraising course, what would I recommend? So my accountant would say mine, but actually Bill Bruty. I learned so much on his trust fundraising fundamentals. I think the structure has changed now, but it was a 3-day one, and one was all about writing, which was amazing. He used the sort of 6 thinking hats methodology to help you think differently about your case for support. One was about finance, and I can't remember the third one now, but it transformed my writing, and I highly, highly recommend Bill Bruty's course. He's an amazing, amazing trainer. Obviously, if you can't afford his course, keep a lookout for ours as well. I've included a few more expressions. So Susan is saying she's encountered more expressions of interest recently. Good for trusts with lots of competition, saves time on huge applications. Yeah, I think that's really positive in that case. Thank you for that. Yet again, it's just scrolling weirdly. Right, here we go. Helen, from expressions of interest you've completed in the past, they generally ask you who you are, what you do, impact of the project, how your funding is funded, sustainability, So there you go. Thank you for answering that question. Come on, let's go. Oh, it's scrolled right back up again. Come on, down, down, down. We would like to start an individual donor income stream. How do I start setting that up? Right, so Heather, I'm going to be really honest with you and tell you I've never started an individual donor income stream, and I'm definitely not the right person to ask. But there is an amazing group, and I'm just going to look it up now to give you the right details, run by a brilliant fundraiser called Sarah Goddard. She does sort of like these lives, she does free advice. I just need to find the name of the group. Hold on one second. It's called, here it is. It's called Public Fundraising Specialists, Individual Giving, Community and Events. So she has set up individual giving programs. She understands the interconnectivity between asking people to do events for you, fundraise in their community, and give you regular giving, and it is all very interconnected. And I highly, highly recommend joining her group. She has these sort of cuppa and chat sessions, which are very informal, similar to these, where she invites people to ask her any questions about it, and she will definitely know how to help you, because she's done it, and working with smaller charities is definitely her bag. Louise has asked me, what's the bare minimum in terms of information I'd expect from colleagues running a programme before I start applying for trusts? We actually have a sort of proposal matrix, which you can download from our website. Because I'm on my mobile today, I won't be able, thank you for sharing the link to that Facebook group. I won't be able to share the proposal matrix link right now, but I will do afterwards, and that helps you sort of dig out the information. There is a level of detail you do need. I completely agree, Louise, and I'm hoping that will help in terms of a structure for you. I will share that afterwards. Public fundraising, is that the one? Yes, Holly, that is the group I'm talking about, so thank you for that. I've worked out what it is. If the question is long, my screen jumps, which is very frustrating, so I'm really sorry if I'm missing anyone's questions. I'm doing my best to get there. I think I've answered all the questions in the stream. Tell me if, write it again basically if I haven't, because my screen is being funny. I have got some other pre-written ones which I need to go through as well. So it's a question here from Emma in the group about network mapping, advice, resources, templates, and one thing another. So network mapping, for any of you who don't know, is when you go to a person who's well connected and you try and literally map who do they know, who is important in terms of your organisation. So you might know that a trust, someone said it on the group this week, there's some trusts that say we're not open to unsolicited applications, we choose our own charities, thank you. Sainsbury's is a famous example of that, and I think it was the people behind Tetra Pak who are also saying that. And so there's a question around, well, I know that my organisation is brilliant at the things you already fund, so how do I put my organisation in front of those people so that they know we exist in order to choose us or not? And network mapping is one of the answers for that. So you take the trustees of that trust and you sit down with your person who's well connected and you literally go, do you know any of these people? So you might know that that trustee also works at, I don't know, name a big company. So they also work at Credit Suisse. And you know that your influential person knows someone who works at Credit Suisse. So it's like the 6 degrees of separation type thing. And you literally go with a list and you ask them how, if they can connect you to anyone directly, or if they can connect you to those companies and connecting dots. And also ask them how well they know someone. So I use a really basic ABC. A is a close personal friend. C is an acquaintance, and you could probably do them a formal email, but you wouldn't feel close enough to pick up the phone. And B is somewhere in the middle, and it's a bit woollier. And try and force people to do A's and C's so that you know, because there's no point walking away from network mapping thinking you've got all these connections, then you find that, you know, they worked at the same company as them 10 years ago and they don't remember who they are from Adam. So I don't think there is a template you use for network mapping, because I think network mapping is a conversation. It's literally, who do you know who might be useful? The other way you can do it is just by, if you know someone's got a great address book, this takes a lot more trust, is just getting them to open that address book and talk about, you know, maybe who are the top 5 people who they are connected to, who they think might be influential in your cause in some way, whether that's connecting to trustees or making gifts themselves, that kind of thing. But be gentle. It's hard to hand over your trustees, your connections to someone. So, you know, be gentle when you do it. No one's popped up and said that I've missed their question, so I hope that means I haven't missed their question. I'm going to move on to the next one that's been written down for me here, is if you get asked in an application, if the project is not achieving its desired outcomes or impact, describe your organisation's plan to adjust the project plan. What would you write in that circumstance? and I think I can't remember who asked this question in the group. They went, well, it's unlike tapping, isn't it? I've had it happen twice. I mean, hopefully you do have project management tools in place in your organisation for how you constantly monitor the progress of projects, and you have leadership in place that, you know, if it's not hitting its measures on X number of occasions, that you come in and review it. Basically, they want to know that you're keeping an eye. They want to know that you know what to do if it changes. I mean, what that answer actually is depends entirely on what the project is and who your organisation is. I mean, if it's a project about getting young people into education, they want to know about the fact that you're monitoring volumes of people going through the program, monitoring their outcomes at the end of it, and that you're taking steps to listen to why it's not working and adjust accordingly. That's what they want to know, and that you will tell them. You will involve them in the conversation. If they funded project A and 6 months into project A, you know it's really not working and you've got to adapt it into project B, you've got to have them on side because it's their money that's being adapted in a different way. So part of that question is around, will you tell us? Will you fess up to it? And ultimately, as long as it delivers the same end goal, in my example, you know, young people into work or whatever, or education, you know, they don't necessarily mind. I find that funders understand that sometimes these things change. Next question is around, how do we find trusts? So there are obviously paid for databases you can access. The Directory of Social Change has one. There are several others that you can access, and you put in your search terms and you come out. As long as you're based in England, or England and Wales I should say, then you can basically do the same with the advanced search function of the Charity Commission website. So it's all about knowing how to do good searches. You can definitely search for that kind of stuff. It's always worth looking at where your competitors are getting their money from. So, you know, if you've got someone, and most trusts are published on an annual report and what have you. So going through and seeing who your competitors are funded by. Obviously some of that will be local funding, and one thing another. Go to your local community foundation. If you are a local based charity, they will have access to local funds that might not be constituted formally as trusts, but that might just be pots that local people are asking the community foundation to help them get away with. And also, if you have a CVS, if you have a voluntary service nearby, they can help you understand who the local funders are and what their criteria are and that sort of thing. But I would say, particularly if you're small, just work through how to use the Charity Commission search function, community foundations, CVSs. That's my advice. I don't believe it's necessary to pay for the big resources for all charities. So the next question is around cultivation events. So obviously cultivation events is normally considered wording we would use in a major donor programme. But obviously some trusts, I would say all trusts, are major donors. They often give us significant sums of money. And behind that organisational title, it is still people making decisions about giving away large sums of money. So they are worth cultivating. They are worth involving and engaging in your cause. Not all trusts want to be invited to that stuff. Some of them don't have the capacity and the energy to attend events. They're worried that by attending an event, it's a waste of your charity's money, a waste of their time. They will feel under an obligation to give you more, that kind of thing. Yeah, thanks, Annie. 2 other great resources there in the comments for finding trusts. Yeah, so cultivation events, they are useful for trusts, particularly existing donor trusts. If you're doing an event where you're sharing what has happened as a result of some funding, it's brilliant to involve trusts in that because they get to see what's happening. And any cultivation event is a brilliant opportunity for you to just engage in conversation with your donor. So really lovely to see you here tonight. What are you really enjoying hearing about? Is there anything you thought you'd hear about that you haven't, that I can talk to you about? You know, how is your experience with us? Are we giving you everything you need? I would say that the success criteria for anyone invited to any cultivation event is a follow-up meeting, not an ask. And so obviously, and the question was sort of, you know, how soon after a cultivation event do you ask your trusts? I would say that fully depends on what happens in that conversation. So you chat to them a bit at the event. I'd love to have a proper conversation with you. Obviously, we're both circulating. We can only see each other for a few minutes now. Can I be in touch and get something in the diary in the coming weeks? Yes, thank you. That's success at the event. In the coming weeks, you set your meeting. You go there and you go, so obviously on the night you heard about this and you told me you also wanted to hear about that. And here's everything you've asked of me. Prove to you that I listen to you and that I value what you say. Obviously, you've been great funders in the past. Really grateful. You can see that we couldn't have done this without you. I would like to submit another application, and before I do that, I wanted to talk to you about whether that is something that would be taken well by the trustees, would be well received, and what would be the optimum timing for any application, please. So you get some timing. They might say, oh gosh, you know, and I've had this before with grant administrators. Once you build a relationship, do you know what, actually I'm already stacked with a backlog for the next 3 trustee meetings. Big trust, they meet every month. So could you wait a few months? I know that's difficult for you money wise, but you're just not going to get the same easy yes right now. Whereas I can put you top of the agenda in 3 meetings time. Oh, thanks so much for that tip. Really appreciate it. And from your administration point of view, what would be the optimum time for me to get that application to you ahead of that meeting? Is now good, or would you like me to wait a couple of months as well? You know, make sure you're making the administrators happy. And then kind of, well, you know, the project costs £25,000. You've been super generous in the past with donations of 5 towards it. Would it be possible to ask for more? I realise that, you know, you get a lot of calls on your time and your money, but you're really invested in this. Would it be possible to ask for more this time? You know, just be direct and ask people those things. So it's not an ask, because you're not saying, will you give me a gift of, but whoever it is that's taking the time to engage with you, what they're actually doing is giving you a steer as to whether, you know, you get them to commit to the fact that they will be open and your application would be well received, and then you ask them if you could push it up a bit further. That's my cultivation event advice. I'm just checking. No, or maybe some more questions. No, I don't think some more questions. I think that's it on the questions front. Live. One more question's come to us, which is around effective donor stewardship activities. I've seen some amazing creativity in donor stewardship activities over the years. I think the world is our oyster where that stuff is concerned, but we just need to be aware that wonderful creative things don't suit every donor and don't suit every donor type. Again, going back to my previous comment, absolutely, trusts are a group of people who make decisions, and they may well enjoy some personal stewardship, but they may well not. Exactly the same with major donors, exactly the same with mid-value, exactly the same with individual givers. You know, there's no sort of one size fits all there. Some people have given me feedback in the past that they think that all of that is stuff and nonsense, and they wish fundraisers wouldn't waste their time with arts and crafts. I've been given that feedback. And then I've had other people go, gosh, it's so lovely to have something so personal and handmade, and really appreciate the efforts. It makes me feel like my donation is more valuable. So frankly, it flip-flops between don't do it and do it as the advice from donors, as always, because each donor is an individual and has their own point of view. I do believe it needs to be congruent with your cause. And I feel strongly that you need to think carefully about how much time you dedicate to a donor at any level, just from a practicality point of view. If you kind of set your store by giving everyone who gives you more than 500 quid a hand-drawn picture, I realise that's a really stupid example, you're going to fall foul when you get more donors at that level. So, you know, think carefully about what's a sensible resource allocation from your time and what's a congruent thing. So the team at Battersea used to send edible birthday cards to their donors' dogs and cats, because they knew that when their major donors' dogs' birthdays were and cats' birthdays. Now, that proves that you know and you love them deeply, because it isn't about the person, it's about the animal, and you recognise that that's important for that person and you're an animal cause. And, you know, who doesn't want an edible dog and cat card if you're a dog lover and a cat lover? You know, that kind of thing. So they did that at Battersea. I thought it was lovely. And there was a thing on the major donor fundraising group recently where a woman who fundraises for Jewish causes was talking about how she uses miniatures of whiskey. And I'm not Jewish, I don't know enough about the Jewish faith, but she explained that whiskey is quite an important drink at key Jewish events. A drink of whiskey is quite important at quite a lot of their celebrations. So that feels quite congruent with a Jewish cause if it's a drink that's traditionally drunk there. So I think, you know, and obviously like packets of wildflower seeds if you're anything to do with bees and the environment, that kind of stuff. Definitely, regardless of your cause, think of the environmental impact. No longer can any of us think, well, we're all about cancer, therefore it doesn't matter if it's single-use plastic. People care. So make sure it's not wasteful, make sure it's got purpose, make sure it's congruent, make sure it's modest. I mean, really make sure it's modest. But yeah, use them and just use your imagination. And if you wanted one time, I could facilitate what's it called in a group? Where is it a discussion room? I could facilitate a room in Facebook, and we could all come together instead of doing this with me just chatting to you, and we could do a kind of brainstorm of different things people have put together. If that's of interest, that could be a fun way to spend one of our lives. Comment from Helen. Let me just read that. Oh, good. I'm glad you find that helpful. Helen, in case you can't read it, is saying that she found it helpful that I kind of walked through that conversation in the cultivation thing. Thanks. I worry sometimes I'm being a bit patronising, but also I've heard enough times that people literally don't know the words and the phraseology. So I'm really happy to talk that stuff through with people. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I have run over my time. I think that's because I was late. I hope I've answered everybody's questions. I'm really sorry about my tech fail and not being able to have Neela Jane live with us. She, in common with all of you, will get to see this recording afterwards. So these questions will definitely be included in her Q&A, and I will kind of, she's obviously got access to previous episodes, which are all on YouTube. So that's to remind you. All episodes of my Trust Lives are on YouTube, available to see. So if you have a spare half hour and you literally can't think of anything better to do, I mean, I can't imagine it myself, do feel free to go through the archive and see what questions have come up and one thing and another. You know, they're there as a resource to help people. Our next live will be on Thursday, the 22nd of July, again at 12:15 p.m. here on the Trust Fundraising Hub. And if you can't join me live, submit questions. So going into the Trust Fundraising Hub during the month, we're now kind of trying to grab these questions as they come up through the month, so that I can address them once a month, which helps my workload a bit, and means that you guys know that your questions will be answered. The recordings get shared on the group as soon as I press finish, as long as I don't press the wrong button, and then, like I say, they get shared on YouTube as an archive afterwards as well. So thank you for your time, thank you for asking me lots of questions, which makes these things go much easier, and I'll see you again next month. Bye for now.